Hello, hello Shift, hello Zagreb. I have to say, as you will find out throughout the presentation, I'm also a hobby historian, and I've always looked east from a history perspective because it inspires me so much to look east. If you're from the West like we are, you tend to be a bit entitled and proud of where you come from, and we tend to look to the West. But if you look east, you see way more positive energy. You see people looking towards the future. You see people resurrecting rather than trying to hang on to the past. So I was excited when Shift invited me to come here, and I have to say, yesterday as I was walking around town, I felt this incredible energy and optimism. So I would like to thank you for having me. So what are we going to do today? Well, I'm going to do a little bit about open banking, because you're going to get 2 days of open banking, and there's lovely colleagues that I know. Lou from ACI is going to talk to you about instant payments. We have the people from TransferWise here. So I was asked not to just focus on that, but I'm literally building on what Robert just told. Robert talked about vision, and I'm going to go one level, probably even deeper, and it's underlying all of that, and I'm going to talk to you about the purpose of why we do stuff, why we build a fintech company, why we run a project in a bank, or why we are here today. I'm going to share 5 minutes of open banking thoughts with you, because with Bankifi, we started a company in 2018 on the back of the open banking legislation, PSD2. And prior to that, we co-founded a company that was building payment hubs, which we sold in 2014. And we thought, let's do it one more time. And we started, and really our sort of superpower or super strength, what you want to call it, was very much the same in a funny way as Robert's. You know, we want to let the bakers bake. We are encouraging the SMEs, the gigs, the sole traders of this world, to build their life not around the people who support them, but around their business. So we bring accounting, tax, invoicing, getting paid, all together in a set of micro-business services. The only difference is we do it through the bank. And why do we do that? Well, because that's where our strength lies. We've been doing 30 years of selling through the bank. There are many banks in dire need and help of some support on that level. There are banks that are scared of the cloud, but they still have to do it, and we can help them doing it that way. So, yeah. Open Banking 2.0, I want to talk to you about 5 issues that I hope you will stick with you and that you will question over the next few days. I think we've sort of seen Open Banking 1.0, and this is where banks say, you know, we build a bigger app store, the more funky app store than anybody else, and if I can't help you, you go to my app store and they will give you some lending or whatever you need. I think that's a bad service. It's a bad service because you say, I can't help you, well, I'll open the back door of the kitchen, go to the neighbors, and they will tell you where to go. Not good. We now have the technology as a bank to sort of put all those services back in the channel. And whereas in the past, with multi-channel, it was very expensive to deploy that across many, many channels, we can now set it up once in the cloud, and people can access it from the channel they want. Now, obviously, that comes with its challenges, because if you're a fintech or you're a startup, you really need to focus on which customer do I want to serve. And I see many, many people also in my investment roles, in my work with Holland Fintech, who all go through the easiest customer first, the customer, because they look in the mirror, they see themselves, and they think, I'm the customer. Well, mistake number 1, you're not. If you look in the mirror, you see yourself. You don't see your benchmark customer. And we felt, and it's our choice, that if you go for those customers, well, you know, a consumer will upload 500 apps on his phone and only use 2. There's very little money to be made on the consumer customer, because they're really taken quite well care of if you look at banking services. So we thought, which customer has been squeezed since 2008? Well, that's been the small business. The small business customer is too small to be important, and he's too big to be protected by government rules. So we focus on that. It doesn't matter which one, but I just say, if you're a fintech, really think long and hard about your customer segment. Mindset too, Robert alluded to it as well. Good is good enough. Most of the technology we use today, including, say, you know, Outlook, including even Apple, including accounting packages like Xero Exact, if you look at it, people tend to use 17% of the functionality. So if you're a fintech, focus on good is good enough and be excellent in the good is good enough. breaking down silos. I don't know whether there's any banks here, but this is the only slide I need to put up when I speak with banks. Because when you sell to a bank, they will say, ah, you're Bankifi, but you're doing sole traders. Yeah, we put that in the customer segment, in the consumer segment, so you need to talk to the retail bank. You cannot build truly open banking services, and that means using data from finance and non-finance, being relevant around the time and the location, if you continue to live in your silo. And you will be surprised how much of that silo and product-based thinking we even have when we build our new companies. And the last point is, I think Open Banking 2.0 is the place and is the space where I get excited, where we move from all this, the focus on these wonderful customer experience apps, also into the murky and the deeper waters of banking, where we really, really start to break down the vast dominance in a sort of bigger space. Two brilliant, Kinect is to be announced, coming live next year. And really what they do is they take the whole value chain of OTC and derivative products and share the burden with various players, and therefore they can have bigger volumes, they can have a modern platform. It's not one bank that has to build it, they can all use it. And the banks that subscribe to that model realize that that's not the uniqueness where you need to focus on. You need to focus on the customer and share the burden and go for new technology. Knox is doing very much the same thing. You know, big asset managers have wonderful tools to at their hands. Smaller asset managers don't, whereas people, we start to see more and more smaller asset managers. Knox brings smaller asset managers together and gives them fantastic access to new, very agile and nimble technology, taking the base points of doing asset management from 4 to like less than 1 point. This is what I call sort of innovation, but it's less sexy than apps at the foresight. I'm going to skip this for the purpose of time, because cloud is not something I need to get you excited for. You guys have all got that in your DNA. If I do a banking presentation, I have to explain why you can trust the cloud, probably better than your own IT department. I want to talk to you about purpose. And the weird thing is, about 2-3 years ago, I started thinking about this, because I was asked to found another company, and I'd sold the one company, and I thought, well, I could just sort of do some fun things with that money. But what makes me tick? Why? And I have a son who was at the time 22, and he kept asking me, why do you do what you do? What shall I do? And this topic started to come up, but nobody ever spoke about it. Last year at Money 2020 in Amsterdam, I spoke about it too. And suddenly, I was so amazed that this year McKinsey is writing about it. It's a soft thing, but it's becoming even acknowledged by McKinsey. And they say, banks that have a firm sense of their why are important. So as the proverb goes, if you know your why, it's a lot easier to figure out how. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because you're all here with your very own why and your own how. And whether that is at a company level or a project level, in a bigger organization with its challenges, or on a personal level. I think that hopefully you'll get something out of this. And so I thought, as I was sort of cooking in my kitchen, I was thinking, yeah, purpose is actually our only capital in life. They can take everything away from you, your money, your house, your independence, your health. They can never take your purpose. It's up here, it is yours, and it's your domain, and I want to empower you a little bit around that domain. So why do I cook for 15 people when I could be binge watching Netflix? Why do I work on a presentation to go to Zagreb for a few hours or a day? Why do I do these things? And I found out that you can only live very fast, as we all do, we jump from one to the next, if we think slow. Take time off to think slow. Very important. And we can only leap very far forward, as we all try to do, and we have to do, because with open banking, we're crossing a Rubicon. We're going into untested waters. We have to reinvent the model. We can only leap far forward if we have the ability to reach far back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce you today to 4 people who inspire me from the past. 4 stories, and hopefully 1 or 2 of them will sort of touch on you as well. And I'm going to start with the first one. This is my grandfather, who was born in 1898, so before the First World War. And this is him. This is 1906. He's in a hospital bed. He had to operate on his knee. And I looked at it, it's sort of Rasputin with the cook from Downton Abbey. I don't know, but he must have been a very, very scared little child. And he reminded me because last year, I was in exactly the same situation. We just started a company, and I ended up in hospital, totally unexpected. And the only thing I could do was stare at the ceiling. I was totally out of control, and I thought, holy. And then at night, my grandfather came to me. He'd always been a great beacon in my life. And he said, Conny, 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 don't panic. You're not out of control. You're in total control of how you deal with this situation, what you're going to do with it. Stay close to yourself, stay who you are. And I figured out I'm always very curious. So I thought, well, if I lie flat on my back, I might as well remain curious. I'm always curious. So I started talking to the hospital team and to the people. And I found out 2 things that were actually connected to fintech. And amazing as it is, if you're a payments guru, like you guys and we are, you think frictionless is an end goal. You know, no friction in a payment and nothing. And I figured out there that a little level of friction gives a massive amount of security. So if you go into a next session, they say, what's your name, your date of birth? They know all that, I'm tagged. Just to ask the question gave me an added level of security. So you want to think about the psychological effects of being frictionless. And the other thing I found out was, it was interesting, if they lift you on an operating table, you're not going to ask like, you focus on who's my surgeon. You're not going to focus on, you know, did he build the theater himself? Did he build a table himself? Yet in banks, we always think that the added benefit is in our technology. And so we want to develop it in-house, because if we develop our own tech, it will be better. It's not. Your banks should really leave the development of new tech to innovators like you guys, and make the heroes in their basement, the guys who keep the bank operationally excellent and secure, they are the heroes of the bank. So let me introduce you to my next inspiration. We're going further back. This is 17th century stuff. Elsje Christiaans. And Elsje Christiaans is the story of a girl, an 18-year-old girl who came from Denmark. And I'm from the Netherlands, as you might have guessed. And I'm sure many of you have been to our beautiful country. And I think a lot of you will know Vincent van Gogh and Rembrandt van Rijn. And this year, actually, we remember that Rembrandt van Rijn passed away 350 years ago. Poor as a rat, and not as famous as he is today. And you probably know him from these type of paintings. And remember, the 17th century, this was the golden age, you know. The patricians of Amsterdam looked proudly down on us. They're the successful people. They're sort of us, the echo room of fame, you know. We're here, we're in a good community, we know our stuff. So, you know, they were the unicorns of their day, the successful people. And he was painting them. Yet, Rembrandt had an eye for, as they said, the clair obscure. This is the clair. He also had an eye for the obscure. And this is Elsje Christiaans. Elsje was 18 years old. She lived in Denmark. Her sister was already working in Holland as a maid in a household. And she had to figure out a way to get to Amsterdam, because she thought, this is where my future lies. I can work there and build a new life. So she got on a boat where she saw all sorts of stuff going on. And she disembarked in Amsterdam, where people at the port were waiting for her. You know, the ladies who give you the lodging houses, the brokers for work. And she got on the shore, and she went with a lady to a broker, to a lodging house. And the lady said, I'll find you a job, I'll find you a job. You can feel the sentiment starting. This is not so very different from what we go through today. I mean, think about London, think about Amsterdam. We would be closed down if it wasn't for people from other countries to come and help us in our services industry. Nothing has changed. Elsje couldn't find a job very easily. And soon the landlady said, well, you have more to sell than work. And Elsje thought, oh, she panicked. She was an 18-year-old innocent girl. And in one of those encounters, she picked up an axe, knocked the lady over her head, fell to the floor. She bled to her death, and else she ran off. She jumped in the canal, was picked out, brought before the magistrates of Amsterdam. You've probably been at Dam Square. And the magistrate said, this is enough. We've got to put an example here that you cannot come to this country and behave like this. Well, I hear similar things these days. And poor Elsje was the first woman in 39 years to be killed by strangulation. It was a terrible death. 18 years old. Rembrandt heard about the story, and he was appalled by it. And she was then brought across the river to, I don't know whether you've been in Amsterdam, but you have these huge big swings that go over the river. She was literally brought there to be swinging as well. She was eaten by the birds. And Rembrandt got in his boat, and he painted her really totally free of prejudice about beauty or how awful this looked. Because he said, this story has to be told. This story has to be told. And so I say to you, and I say to myself every day, do I just build a new fintech to become a unicorn? Or do I also think of the Elsjes? Do we also include them in our schemes? And are they part of our industry? And are they part of what we're trying to achieve? Are we building a gap in the next fourth industry revolution between the haves and the haves not? Or are we this time going to try and bridge it? And so this is a fun story. This is a woman I massively admire, Johanna Borsky. And Johanna Borsky, slightly late, 18th century. Johanna Borsky was an amazing girl. I've been for 30 years in this industry, so I've had all the Me Too you can imagine, and you know, and the degenerative remarks. Even this morning, we had a call about a guy who said, well, women can have a purpose on a board, but you know, on a supervisory board, I don't know whether they really matter. It still exists today. And by the way, this is not a story for just girls. This is also a story for men, so stay seated. I love men. I work with them. Proudly to say that in Bankifi we have as many women programmers as men, so that is fun. We get a nice ambience. But Johanna didn't give a hoot about all of this. Johanna was born in a time and a day and an age. She couldn't sign a contract, she couldn't have a bank account, she couldn't make any decisions. She had a very good husband who unfortunately died at the age of 52. He was a broker and an investor. And so when he passed away, everybody said, you know what, you should give up all of this, hand over the reins to your son and a director. And she said, no, 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 we're not going to do that. I'm going to stay in charge. And she grew the business, and she parked her carriage in front of the stock exchange. People would go in and out, and the other people would sign the contracts, but she was in charge. And guess what? In 1814, when the first king of the Netherlands needed money to establish the Dutch central bank, he had to turn to her to sell the last 50% of the shares. So not only did she establish herself as a businesswoman and an investor, she was also a co-founder of the Dutch bank with her money. Do you think that there is one portrait of her in the bank? Yes, there is. A tiny portrait, this portrait, in one of the smaller meeting rooms. So, what she does teach us, in fact, I admire her a lot, and a friend of mine said, you know, you want to sit for my next series of portraits. So I did, which is a terrible picture, but it was fun to do. But what she teaches us is that if there's prejudice, if people tell you can't do it, you can do it. Paint outside the lines and never, ever give up. My last one's Henry V. I only have a minute left, so I'm going to go fast. Henry V, as you will probably know, was in an impossible position. All the French-English wars, this was the last battle, Battle of Agincourt. And he was fighting literally with a handful of men against thousands of French men. And he thought, how am I going to inspire my men before they go to sleep, before the battle tonight? And he spoke the famous words of the Battle of Agincourt. And I have often used them when I speak with the team, but also when I think about the choices I have to make in life. And the important lesson here, and it will give you some lines of his speech, is that it's okay not to want to do something. But life is about choices and consequences. And if you choose to do something, you have to take whatever comes next. And so he said to his men on battle before the evening, he said, he who has no stomach for this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns put in his purse for a safe voyage. For we do not wish to die in such men's company. And you may think that sounds cruel, like he wants to get rid of the losers. No, that was not the message. The message was, If you're scared of the adventure, if you're scared of crossing the Rubicon, going into the unknown, that's okay. I will give you a safe journey home. But if you go with me, you have to go all the way and accept the consequences. And this is what I say to people who say, I'm going to start my own company. And I say, that's absolutely cool. But with your own company comes the insecurity, the possible failure, the highly likelihood of failure, the hard working days. Forget about balance, life-work balance for a bit. It's okay. But do know, if this is what you go for, that's what you're going to have to pay. And it doesn't matter what world you live in. These are the consequences. But the good news is, if you'd rather work in a very large bank or a very large tech company, you can achieve similar things, but you need a different mindset. So make your choice, accept the consequence. And so we did. Mark Hartley, my founding partner, and I talked about purpose and everything long and hard, and we knew that our purpose was to unburden the sole trader, the businessman who goes about his daily life, or her daily life. And we want to make sure that through the bank or through any other means, they get whatever they need to build their business, unburdened by doing accounting, doing tax, doing invoicing, getting paid. He makes me laugh still. And we know there are times and times, like this weekend, he had a bad time. And we know, I said, I'll have your back. We're going to do this together. So choose your battle mates wisely, make your choices, and accept the consequences. And with that, I want to conclude and say to you guys, you're here for 2 days. We're going to meet all sorts of nice people. And I really hope that you're going to find your Cornelis inside you, and that you know, no matter what life throws at you, you are in control of how you deal with it. It's up to you how others react to you. And I encourage you to find your Elsje. So whatever you do, and success is good, don't worry, success is great. But include the other side of the fintech coin. Whenever you always have an opportunity to include those people and those purposes. Find your Johanna. Don't be a victim. Be a Borski. Don't let anybody tell you cannot do it, because you can. And finally, choose your better mates and choose them wisely. And my ask to you is very simple. I'm here, I'm curious. If you would like to work with us, because I don't know partners in the region, if you're a bank, come and meet us. I was delighted to be here, and I hope it will be of some use to you at some point in your life. Thank you very much.